Councilor Reeves.
Well, I don't know. I feel I'm having many thoughts. I believe, I, I guess I went on my site visit and I came back and it was just like I had a headache because it just seemed to me, how did this all get to be this way? The industrial properties converting to residential, the closed-off streets, the congestion that we were shown, and from my point of view, the development of North Mass Ave didn't seem to go as right as it should have in terms of how things look residentially. And my desire was to spend a lot of time with the Community Development Department to find out, you know, should we or could we have done better, or is this just sort of late evolving, just the confluence of the facts of the moment? Then I haven't met with the faucet person, but I happen to know the architect, so I asked him to give me a view, and he says, well, is a well-known local architect, Mr. Boyce Watson, and much admired one. He seemed to have voiced the thought that if the petition, what they could build as of right is so similar to what is proposed, they thought, which I was surprised to hear that, because I didn't really hear that other than from him. So the unfortunateness for me is that we're in the throes of many things. You will hear Councilor Decker and the Blue Ribbon Commission will report from the work that they've been involved in over the year. I have a similar report that I'm in the throes of. I have an 8 a.m. meeting tomorrow to review drafts of. So one could say some of us are rather buried in the moment. I don't have any desire to obfuscate anything, but the best decision-making of this policy-making body is not done to do it before the election as the logic. It just is not where you get good policy. These are tight timelines. Maybe everybody can get up to speed by then, but my own feeling is that if early December is a little more time, then those of us who have not focused on this solely might be able to, if I voted on this now, it would just be by, I wouldn't have any sure basis. I wouldn't know what I'm doing as a policymaker to make it better. So, but I don't necessarily need 2 or 3 days. It's not, I just need the opportunity to sit with community development in some sort of imaginative way, because whatever is done here, the connection of these 5 streets and the it behind it is going to be the result. So can we make a better solution? The other thing that was somewhat of a drawback to me, there were neighbors who were for the community garden as a sort of amenity that would help with the development. There are others who weren't. And I couldn't, I was unable to weigh that out to logic. So I hate to have concerns, but these are the ones I'm having. And I don't know who rounded up the vote the bishop before the election energies, but I'm not sure you get your best result on that note. It just is not, I have been here when last minute policy happened, and it ain't pretty, and what you end up with sometimes is worse than what you imagine. So those would be the thoughts I'm having.
Councilor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so many people from the neighborhood came out, so you have the right to hear what we're all thinking about this. Some of you I've been talking to individually, but there's more than just a few that I've been in communication with regularly. And I guess my thoughts, if anyone came here tonight thinking the council was going to vote to pass the petition tonight, that was not communicated to the majority of the council. So for one colleague, I don't know if my colleague was expecting to bring this forward for a final vote. It didn't sound completely that way, but it would be very unusual and not the best way of making a decision for the council to have been sort of taken by surprise and have it pulled out and voted on tonight. So I think What I do want residents to hear, I've been trying to get an understanding of what this urgency is to get it done before the election, which I've heard from some people, a little bit of a buzz. And the only thing that can mean for me is that there are some people, and not everybody who thinks this, but that the root of that would be that there's this distrust that somehow the current elected officials won't do the right thing by you unless an election's held over them. And I want people to know, at least from my perspective and from at least a number of my colleagues who I've worked with, we're going to do the right thing by your neighborhood, whether there's an election or not. And there's so, I think the idea, I'm going to continue talking to people about where we vote on this. Ultimately, I think it's important, and I just saw Mr. Rafferty walk in, who's representing Fawcett. I think it's clear to Fawcett they should know that if in the negotiations, and my understanding was that there was just one recent round of negotiations last week, where some changes were made, but clearly not enough, that Fawcett should know that at some point, if the neighborhood is not happy with what ultimately comes out of these negotiations, this downzoning will be passed. So I don't see it as an option of this not being passed at some point. At least I don't, based on some of the informal conversations of my colleagues. I think that it is important because, as some of you have had conversations with some of us, to pass the downzoning petition tonight takes that off the table for any other kind of negotiation. There's other things that this neighborhood needs to make it a livable neighborhood that are not going to come through solely a zoning petition. And I think once you take that off the table, there is no incentive for Fawcett or any other developer there to continue having a conversation about the kinds of buildings that get made, the kinds of housing that gets built, the landscaping of streets, maybe the finishing off of other streets. There's so many other non-zoning issues that need to come out to make the best possible outcome for your neighborhood. And I will just say to you that I have no problem voting for this and supporting you. I think to do it right now would not be the best thing on behalf of the neighborhood, to do it tonight without exhausting the possibilities of what else can be negotiated with them. But ultimately, if what doesn't get negotiated is something that you feel is the best outcome for your neighborhood, this will be passed. At least I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues, I have to imagine, based on conversations, that is the outcome for them. So I think it's important that that message, I'd be surprised if they didn't understand that message already, but that message can continue to go back, and I'm happy to be available as of early tomorrow to continue talking to residents about this, and I've offered to be present at negotiations, and I'm sure any one of my colleagues would also offer to do that. I think at some point it is helpful to have counselors be a part of that and witness for you what they're saying and what they're not saying and what it is that you want, and to also go back and help you talk to community development so that there's other people from the city who are giving you those resources and helping you understand what the best possible tools are to make sure that what you're negotiating is actually going to get you the outcome that you want, and what kind of a legal agreement can you craft to make sure that that is the outcome, so that it's whether that's with the zoning petition or without the zoning petition. Even with a zoning petition, I think you want that petition to come with a legal agreement. So even if we were to pass the petition, you want to make sure that a legal agreement is signed with them, talking about all the other things that are important around landscaping, design, environmental reports. We can go on and on. So I guess that's just where my thoughts are this evening. And I hope people do walk away feeling like there is tremendous amount of support to protect your neighborhood. I don't think any counselor could walk through your neighborhood and not immediately see the dilemma that you face and feel really committed to making sure that what happened there, 'cause something's going to happen there. That's just, we know something's going to happen there. So we need to make sure that something is the best possible something that enhances the quality of your life as much as it possibly can. And so I'm committed to continue doing that. And ultimately, if those other things don't get negotiated, then we do just pass this zoning petition, and that's what happens. But I think we would fall far short to not make sure other things happened for your neighborhood.
Councilor Kelly.